Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Terp Talk Tuesday. Tonight we have special guest Travis Petersen.
Yeah, do your thing.
The-
I'm Can Dave.
oh, I'm Canna Dave.
And I'm Groovy.
My bad. I was
Jeez,
jumping right
messing
into
up
our
the whole
special
intro.
guest. We met him at MJ BizCon. Travis Petersen, the Nomad Cook. Thank you for joining us today, Travis.
There you go. What's going on, Travis? Hey,
Good to see you again.
thank you. Welcome to the show and welcome to the first live Terp Talk. We are very excited about live
with a special guest. We're live
yeah.
every Tuesday.
Yeah, like with a guest. I'm really excited for this. So this is cool.
Yeah.
And
No,
really
thanks
excited
for
to
having
hear
me.
about your brand. So tell us a little about yourself, Travis.
Well, I'm a Canadian, so I hail out of Vancouver, British Columbia, up in the Pacific Northwest, and moved down to Arizona September last year. So I've been a chef now for just coming up on 7 years, and I actually got started, jokingly applied for MasterChef, the reality show, got on, was quickly eliminated, and
No way.
How was that experience?
Yeah.
It was a little overwhelming. It was like, I kind of got there and had imposter syndrome, thinking,
Oh.
my background, I worked in the oil and gas industry for 12 plus years as a business development manager. Cooking was just always a passion of mine. So, I kind of jokingly applied, didn't think anything of it. And then it just kind of, I got on the show somehow. I wasn't the first eliminated. I was the second. So, I had fun while I was there, but it was just as intimidating as you think it would be with that big
Yeah, I
giant
can
clock
imagine.
above you. And, so, but it opened up this whole new world for me. So it was a really cool experience. And that was back in 2016 when I got started with this. Canada federally legalized the recreational use of cannabis back in 2018 in October. So about 6 months before that, I did my very first pop-up dinner. I turned my house into a pop-up restaurant, and we had 164 guests over 4 days. So we were doing 5 seatings of 12 every 90 minutes, flipping that table, next group coming in. And, that very first dinner, I did not want to be called a cannabis chef. After the first 3, I just believed the propaganda and the stigmas, and kind of drank too much of that Kool-Aid of thinking that culinary cannabis was going to be a fad, as legalization hit certain areas, all things cannabis would be really cool. And then certain things would kind of fizzle out. So, I had some reluctance to kind of put my name really on it. And, after doing 3 pop-ups in the first month, I just fell in love with the whole process. The one thing about cannabis is it's a sharing plant. You share with people. And what I found was at my dinners that no matter what age, what walk of life you came from, as soon as we sat you around the table and guests started sharing cannabis, they started coming together. So it was kind of the guests that were coming to the events that really kind of sold me on pursuing this further. And, I got to start traveling all over Canada from coast to coast, doing these dinners. And when legalization date hit, I got a little bit of publicity and press out of it. And, they titled me Canada's Cannabis Chef, and I said, okay, that's a title I'll take. And
Hey, that's a cool title.
so I kind of ran with it from there. And, since 2008 now, I'm coming up on 7,000 guests served. Out of those 7,000, about 700 of them have been first-time cannabis users. So we really created a safe space for the canna curious to come in and, be able to safely experience culinary cannabis without having to worry about, ingesting too much or getting sick or greening out. So,
Do you have a favorite way to cook with cannabis? Do you use more CBD or more THC? I'll start off with that before I go into terpenes and everything. Because I was looking at your profile on Instagram, and I was going through some of your dishes, and some of them are 25 milligrams of CBD, 10 milligrams of THC. So I was just curious if there's a specific which you like to go with instead.
Yeah, I mean, it's important. The whole plant's important. So, the one thing that I do is I dose all of my guests individually based on their own tolerance level. So I think that's how we've really created a safe space for the Canna Curious to come in. But all as well, myself, I could take up to 500 milligrams and be functional in a room. And if I went to a cannabis dinner and I only got 10 milligrams, I'd be a little disappointed. So it's very important. Like I see a lot of cannabis chefs down here in the States using, tinctures, distillate, just all it is pure THC. And
right,
when you're playing with just a pure THC, you're giving yourself, you're missing out on the full spectrum experience, especially for people who are new to cannabis. That THC isolate can be like a rocket ship of anxiety and paranoia and bring on all those bad feelings. So It's really important, especially for people who are brand new, that you're giving them CBD, that you're using the terpenes, that you're utilizing the whole plant. The CBD will help suppress a little bit of that anxiety for someone who is new to this or who has a low tolerance. So, I prefer to cook with dried flower. There are situations where concentrates are the right way to go. Like if we want to infuse salts or sugars or spices, we would take a concentrate into an alcohol and then evaporate that into the salt and sugar. I would say about 70% of the time I don't decarb my flour.
That's how we met. I mean, when we were at MJ BizCon, when we had that conversation, I mean, like, you just blew my mind because I was like, I've never heard anyone saying that. They didn't decarb. And so please tell, really, tell our listeners.
Really, when we look at it, like the goal before, go back 15, 20 years ago, what was the goal of edibles? It was to get as high as you can off the brownie, right? Let's maximize the THC potency. Let's utilize it that way. My goal isn't maximizing the THC potency. It's really focused on those terpenes, the flavors, the aroma. And the thing with the cannabis plant is it's very fragile when we start adding too much temperature to it. So, most people will go, well, if you don't decarb your flower, how do you convert the THCA into THC? Well, you're going to decarb no matter what, but it's more of a passive decarb process. It was introduced to me by a chef by the name of Chef Chris Cedeno out of New York. He ran an underground cannabis supper series for about 4 years called 20 Past 4. And I had a chance in 2019 to go out and work with Chef Cedeno. And he was the first one I ever saw not decarb his flour. And his butter was lighter, it was more aromatic, it was palatable, and that really just kind of got the wheels going in my head of, okay, wait a minute, let's look at this in another light. So, that decarb process will happen. So essentially what I do is I'll take the flour directly into my fat. I use a sous vide. So, we have a certification program we launched in Canada last year where we're actually certifying the safety, responsibility, and extraction methods. And, one of the things we teach is you got to have the proper equipment. Yes, you can decarb your flour in the oven, but I recommend against doing that. Yes, you can use a double broiler to infuse your butter and oil, but I advise against that because you need full control of, your environment, the time, and the temperature. So I use a sous vide, which is a water circulator. If I wanted to make an infused olive oil, I would actually take my flour, go directly into the oil in a mason jar, and then drop that in the sous vide bath. While we heat in that bath, we are going to start to decarb the flour and convert that THCA into THC. Now, it's going to be less potent if we were to decarb the traditional method. But what we are going to do with that is we're going to pull more of the terpenes. We're going to pull CBD. It's going to be a more full spectrum extraction. So, I need to use more flour to get to the same level of potency, but us chefs are kind of crazy like that, right? Like when we want to get to an end goal, we don't always want to skip steps and try and make things quicker and easier. We really want to capture that full experience. So I'd say about 70% of the time I'm not decarbing my flour. I'm just letting that sit right in there, unless I have a really low grade of flour, right? If I'm working with shake or trim or just a poorly grown plant, then I don't necessarily want to go the Cedeno method. Cedeno method is when we're looking at quads and trips. beautiful colas, nice thick buds that are really rich in trichomes and have those big aromas in them, right? So really, there's a whole handful of methods you can utilize, and it's really about what is your goal, right? What's the end goal, right? Is maximizing potency, like getting as high as you can, what you want? Then sure, decarb it. But yeah, you gotta go look at the whole process before you start baking away.
So you were saying like you have when you add the flour, you got to add a lot more flour to it if you're not decarbing, correct? So what's like on average, like if I'm asking, like how much will you usually add to like a dinner dish that you do?
Well, I mean, it will all depend. I mean, if you're looking at a THC strain that's about 22% THC, you're going to have about 7,000 milligrams in there, right? Like fully decarbed in that. The Daniel method, it's about a 40% reduction from what you would get if you were to fully decarb. So you're almost using twice as much flour. But you don't necessarily, again, it's, when you're serving a wide range of tolerances, the one thing you have to do to be able to do that is, let's just say I have an infused sauce for my dish. I got to make that sauce 4 times. I make it with no cannabis. I make it with a low grade of cannabis. So I do like a 5 milligrams per tablespoon, 10 milligrams per tablespoon, and 25 milligrams per tablespoon. Because now that I've got that sauce in 4 different batches, and I do that for every single course, I have the flexibility to, alter the dosing for people. Our plate consistency has to be the same. You can only put 1 scoop of sauce on if that's the way the plate's supposed to look. So if you need to increase the dosage for someone, you want to utilize that, more potent sauce. When we look at people more like myself with that really high tolerance level, that's where the isolates really come into play. That's when tinctures really help. You want to give someone an extra 100 milligrams on their plate. Well, you can eye drop that on top and still capture your full spectrum goal of whatever sauce you made.
Wow, so that's blowing my mind. Like I realize it, but you really have it down to a science on which and when to use them depending on who each, customer is.
Yeah, and it's this is really growing here, and this is kind of the approach. I think chefs are the perfect representation to show that this product can be safely incorporated into menus because we are perfectionists in the sense of we go to, there's no limit to the length we'll go to get to that end goal that we want. So yeah, there's a lot of math that goes involved with it. There's more work because, you have to make your sauce 4 times over. But that's just part of the job, right? So I think, the chefs, when we look at that demographic who's a little more conservative and maybe doubtful on cannabis, when we bring them into a dinner party setting, this is their language. They're already having dinner parties. They're already, having chefs come into their homes and that. So when we put them in this environment they're already comfortable with, it makes things a lot more smoother to kind of get it going.
Pretty cool. Is there like any certain dishes you've cooked that you enjoy cooking with? One of your favorite dishes? And then I want to get into terpenes and what you think of terpenes in cooking.
Yeah, terpenes really my focus. Where I come from up in Canada, Vancouver, we're about half, our population is half Asian. So, I grew up using chopsticks 5 years old, was a sushi nut by the time I was 8. So I love noodles. And so I'm very much influenced with Asian flavors. My soys and mirins and sesame is a really strong combination of flavors that you'll find in my menus. Seafood, being from Vancouver, I'm very passionate about. So, when people kind of ask, what's my style, I'll say it's like an Asian seafood. But because I travel so much and do events all over the place, I'm always looking to use what's local, what's fresh, what's in season. So the menu can always kind of change up. I think one of the more popular dishes that I've done I was speaking about that event in 2019 when I got to go out with 20 past 4 in New York. It was super cool. We did a dinner for 100 people in the Bronx in the middle of summer. It was just such a dope vibe. And the chefs had asked me to create something Canadian, which I thought was kind of funny because, like, what's Canadian, right? Canada, we're just a giant melting pot. So we have all types of cuisine, right? We have all different types of cultures in there, and they all get married together. So what I made was a pierogi poutine. I figured poutine, that's Quebecois, Canadian, so that would transition well. So we did a pierogi poutine where we actually infused the potato in the center of the pierogi, and then we made a short rib ragu to go on top of that with some maple apple boursin cheese. So it kind of gave you that hint of maple, that poutine dish, but it's also like your meat and potatoes, right? So that one's always a crowd pleaser when it gets out and served.
That sounds delicious, man. Damn.
Well,
how long you been cooking? Just, I mean, I don't know if I missed that. Like, did you say how long you've been cooking? Not just with cannabis and just in general.
I've been cooking professionally since 2016, so
professionally.
6 years. I moved out of my house when I was 15, and that's when I first started cooking for myself. I think, 15 is, making tacos and lasagna. I always loved coming home from work, shutting the phone off, smoking a joint, cooking dinner for an hour. Put the news on, put some tunes on, whatever it was at 5 o'clock, and like that was kind of my hour. Then just having friends over, taking friends away on vacation. I just loved cooking for my friends, but never once did I utter like, "Hey, I want to be a chef." Right. When I applied for MasterChef, I was kind of joking, but always very passionate about it, and it's fully consumed my life now. It's everything. The one reason I call myself the nomad cook, because when I first started, I was, brand new, and I had too much respect for chefs out there to all of a sudden call myself a chef. So, people will call me the nomad chef, and I'm fine with it. But
I was curious where the nomad chef came from. I was curious. Cook, excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, the nomad part came from just the traveling. Right. In Canada, I would go Calgary, Edmonton, Kelowna, or Vancouver, and then I'd fly out to Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, and do these little circuits. Now that I've moved down into the U.S., I was just mentioning to you guys in February here, I'm doing, going through Oakland, San Jose, Palm Springs, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and then Phoenix. So the tour route's got a little more fun, and it's nicer weather down here this time of year for sure. But
right on.
You guys are up in Michigan, so you probably get tons of snow outside right now.
It's like 2 degrees right now.
Yesterday it felt like -1. And what's up, everyone in the comments? Yeah, if you're not just tuning in with us, this is Travis Petersen talking about cooking with cannabis and how he's been doing professionally for years. So we're just learning today. So what's up, Rich? What's up, CC? What's up, everyone? And then we do have a comment saying Canada has some of the best Thai restaurants in the world. I don't know if you can stand by that, but that's what we got in our comments.
Especially where I come, Vancouver, it's been voted like 8 years in a row the best Chinese food outside of China. And really? Where I live in Arizona now, it's a pretty white community, so I was saying to my wife, like, yeah, I love the Tex-Mex. I love the Mexican food. That's the stuff we don't really get up in Canada. But, man, I miss my noodles and my my sushi. So.
Ken and Dave got a bunch of sushi today.
Yeah, me and my buddy got a huge sushi platter at work, like 74 piece. So great.
So,
terpenes.
Yeah, terpenes in cooking with cannabis. I mean, on our interview in MJ BizCon, you kind of went through like how you used them a little bit, but I mean, just if you want to give us like a little history on how you got into using terpenes for cooking, and now advantages, disadvantages, because we talked about the entourage effect, and we heard not decarb, we heard entourage effect, and terpenes. We're like, this is the dude. So anything you can teach us.
Yeah, my whole focus is utilizing the entourage effect, and placing specific terpenes throughout the menu. So I work with a lot of the major cultivators and retailers, and we'll put on dinners where we give cultivators an opportunity to, demo their products to people. So how do you get your cannabis strain to stand out? Let's say we're doing a dinner for a room full of bud tenders, right? How do you get these bud tenders to remember this Romulan haze strain, right? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to create a menu focusing on the terpenes of the flower. So the really cool thing here is that the compound of a terpene within the cannabis flower is identical to the compound of a terpene within plants, fruits, and herbs. And what we found, the industry has kind of come out with sativa hybrid indica, and I fucking hate that that's the way we go about shopping for our cannabis, but I understand it because
agree.
Terpenes are a little intimidating, especially they're all scientific words like caryophyllene and limonene and myrcene. And, how are you going to introduce a 46-year-old mom who's going to go get her first edible, right? So I was kind of first introduced to the whole terpene thing beginning of 2019. This was right around the time that I met Chef Cedeno. I was actually living in Toronto for about 5 months, and I was just hanging out with some hardcore cannabis people, and they were talking about terpenes, and it was somewhat new to me. But once I started researching a little bit more about it, I realized, this is the way to go. This is what really is going to, intrigue the culinary community, intrigue chefs out there, because for one, we could use terpenes on their own. Terpenes are legal all around the world. I could go to Japan and do a dinner with terpenes and it would be completely legal. Right now, you're not going to feel any effects from just the terpene. It's once we add those cannabinoids in there and we get that chemical reaction that we start to get the effects that we feel. So,
do you add that? Is that just like a distillate that you would add it with?
Well, no. I mean, botanical terpenes will cause an entourage effect just on its own. So, I don't know if you've ever heard, but if you took a mango and you ate it 30 minutes before consuming your first doobie, it's going to increase the effects of that THC. The myrcene within that mango will react with the cannabinoid on itself. So you can, the one problem right now is that most, I would say like 99% of the terpenes out there that are available to purchase are botanical terpenes. So they're coming from plants, fruits, and herbs. They're a little perfumey. The compounds are the same, but they're a little different when you look at them with cooking. Cannabis terpenes are a little more earthy, cloudy, but the problem is they're 20 times more expensive. And the reason is because the amount of plant matter you have to use to get a couple milliliters of a terpene is a lot, right? So what we'll find is over the next 10 years, as this starts becoming more and more mainstream and popular, just like the flat screen TV was super expensive, the price went down. Now they're $100, right? So
supply, demand, supply.
Yeah. So I fully anticipate terpenes really kind of, becoming more affordable as people learn. But the thing when you're cooking with terpenes is that literally a couple teardrops, like 5 teardrops to a liter. Sorry, I won't talk metric. I know we're in the States. 5.
No, you're good. We honestly, the state should catch up, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And honestly, everyone here smokes weed, so we know grams and ounces. So everyone kind of knows some metric here. I don't care where you're from. Okay, you still know what 28 grams is.
The thing, like too much terpene will destroy your palate, destroy a dish. You got to be very careful how you go about. You're going to take an actual cannabis-derived terpene and add it into a sauce. Temperature will also disintegrate it right away if it's too hot. So you really got to pick and choose. Like, the best carrier for cannabis is ice cream, right? Because you're adding no temperature to it. It's frozen. It really grabs flavor. So, there's different ways that you can utilize the terpenes. I'm a big fan of incorporating those terpenes into my salts and my sugars and spices, because you can use, like, we could take, let's just say limonene, right, which we find in our citrus fruits, gives us that therapeutic effect of sort of concentration and energy, gives that energetic boost in that, right? So
yeah, exactly.
By incorporating the terpene into an alcohol and then evaporating the alcohol into rock salt, right? We can have terpene infused rock salt. Let's just say we've got some sushi, right? Some raw fish, some ahi tuna. Well, if we sprinkled that salt on top, right? We've now got our terpene added on top of the fish, and then let's say we have an infused sesame oil, right? That we can with CBD. Well, that CBD and that oil can react with, the rock salt on top. So, what's really exciting here? I mean, I'm a chef of 6-7 years, right? I'm self-taught, and this is where my brain's got. So, what happens when the 3 Michelin starred chef gets taught all this education and all this information? Where does their brain go? Where do they take terpenes? Where do they take cannabis? It's one thing that I'm actually heading over to Europe in September, and we're going to tour through 7 countries introducing culinary cannabis to the culinary community. So right? So it's one of my missions out there, is I want to champion culinary cannabis as a Canadian cuisine, but I really want to help sort of knock down the barriers to make sure that next generation of chefs coming up have full capability of working with this ingredient. I rent Airbnbs and do these underground dinners that you can buy tickets and come to. I want chefs to be able to just do these right out in the open, rent a restaurant, be able to do it. We're a good 10 years away from that happening, but that's kind of what I'm hoping to do out there, is just inspire people to start working with this and to do it safely.
It's cool. We're going to have to get you out of Michigan, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's do it, man. I've never been to Michigan, so I would love to.
It'd have to be the summer. The summers here are beautiful compared to the winter. I mean, unless you you're from Canada, so you don't mind the cold and snow.
Just hard.
Man, I used to live in Edmonton, Alberta, which is
a little chilly.
Alberta's the second province next to BC on the west coast there. It's where all the oil and gas comes. It's kind of Texas North, right? It's oil, cattle, conservatives. And, man, it would hit minus 50 Celsius for 10 days once a year. So the cold don't bother me.
Damn, negative Celsius.
I'm now in the desert, and it's beautiful and sunny out every day, and every now and then I'm like, can I just get a little rain cloud, please? So.
A little cool. Well, actually, we got a couple questions in our chat. So Dave Cobb was asking, what's the best way to use cannabis in cooking? I know it's a little vague. I mean, it could be interpreted a couple different ways, Dave, so just take that as what you may.
The best way to go, again, is if you can create a sauce or something without a sauce, or like a vinaigrette or an ice cream or a whipped cream, where you don't have to apply any temperature to it, right? Because the key, what we teach in the classes is as the chef, you got to be 100% confident in the dose you're serving, right? And if you reheat your infused sauce and you start to compromise the THC in there or the CBD, you're no longer 100% confident in the dosage. So, that's when you have to really take into consideration, like, at what point are you adding the cannabis in that? So, when people kind of ask, what's the best way to go? Let's just say you want to make weed brownies. Yes, you can infuse your butter and put it into the batter, but why have we heard the brownie story a million times, right? I ate the corner, I didn't feel nothing. You ate the center, you trip balls, right? Why? Well, because for one, the butter's not being fully emulsified evenly throughout the batter. And two, we're blasting this with heat, right? To bake those brownies. So different parts are compromising that THC. So what I tell people to do, make a frosting, right? Make a chocolate frosting, right? That's dead cold, right? Room temperature. And then you spread that evenly on top of the brownies, right? And then you can know, hey, I put 50 milligrams into this frosting. I used all the frosting on top of the brownies. So I go and cut it up into 10 different pieces, and I know I've got, 5 milligrams per piece, or I cut it into 5, right? So, that would be my advice to that question.
That's interesting, because when I interpreted that, I thought maybe he meant concentrates, terpenes, distillate. Like, what product is the best, but you guys, I think that's probably what he meant. That's probably what he meant, because I didn't even understand. So that makes more sense to me. And I think the recommendation is just is not trying to add that heat. And I honestly didn't know that. So
yeah, and if we're looking at like what form of cannabis is the best to work with, like I'm always going to promote full flower. I was never big on using concentrates, just mainly because of the process you have to go through to make that concentrate. Do you want all of that being put into food? But morely, just recently working with a company out of Nevada, I realized that by using a concentrate, like the way I used to infuse my salt would take me almost a month, right? Because it would take 7 to 10 days to infuse dried flower into an alcohol, and then you'd slowly evaporate that into the salt. And we literally cut down 90% of the time by using a concentrate, because, I think the one thing people don't realize, when you go into your dispensary and you're buying edibles, indica sativa hybrid is bullshit. Like, there are no terpenes left in that extraction unless they're adding it back in afterwards, right? So I always kind of laugh when they're like sativa and indica with edibles, because they're gone unless you're reintroducing them or you're using the botanical terpene. So if you get a gummy and it tastes like mango, well, they've gone and added a botanical terpene, a mango puree or a mango flavor back in there. So, you're maybe getting a small amount of entourage effect, but most of the time with the edibles, by the time you put it in your mouth, it's either a THC or a CBD edible.
Right on. So we got another question. It says, so does that mean there's not a difference between cannabis-derived terpenes and botanical derived?
The compounds are identical. The big difference is price. But I also find that there's a difference cooking with them. I won't take a botanical terpene and put it into a vinaigrette or that. I find it too perfumey. It's just got that really strong perfume flavor to it in that, whereas the cannabis-derived terpene is a little more earthy. So that's kind of the difference between it. And if you're able to get your hands on cannabis-derived terpenes, then that's the way to go.
Right on. I mean, it makes sense, but I was curious, so it's interesting. So the compound wise, yes, but cooking, you do notice a difference, especially in your taste. I mean, that's
really where it is, right? It's the taste in that. But I mean, if you're playing around, if I'm doing R&D in that, like I'm not using cannabis-derived terpenes that cost me, $1,000 to purchase, right? I'm going to use the botanical terpene that cost me $20. Because then that way, if I make mistakes or a dish doesn't turn out, I'm not wasting away the top shelf ingredients.
Makes sense.
No way.
You have a favorite terpene you like to cook with, or it just depends on dish?
I love pining. I love pining because I love my garden herbs, my basils, oregano, cilantro, parsley, dill. Pining.
Speaking my language.
Pining has that therapeutic effect of sort of focus and concentration. I have found that with my endocannabinoid system, pining, limonene, and myrcene mixed together, and like I'm groovy. I'm in the spot. That is the blend for me. And this is the really cool thing about cannabis, is that we're all gonna have we all have an endocannabinoid system, and it all reacts differently to different terpenes. That's why, some people will swear by a strain. This strain's the best, man. I get so much done. And then you go smoke that strain, and you're like, meh, it's all right. Yep. That's just your body not reacting with those terpenes, right? So that's why using the Cannabis Journal to find out, like, hey, over a 2-week period, I smoked a bunch of different strains. How did I feel? What were the terpenes in those strains? Because once you figure out what your terpene combo is, it'll change your entire buying habits. It'll change the way you look for cannabis. I love pining just because, I work with botanical terpene pining, all the time with herbs. So,
do you have a least favorite? Gotta ask.
No, I don't think I have a least favorite, but I mean, we don't even know all the terpenes. You know, a lemon
there's
has
like 100 and
4
something minor ones, right? Just
well, there's a lemon has 4 terpenes that make up its, its citrusness, its compound profile. The cannabis plant has over 100 that we know of, right? Like this is all new. We're still discovering this stuff. We're still finding it. So, you know, I don't think I have a least favorite. I just haven't, there is a terpene out there that smells like cat piss. So I'm probably not going to ever cook with that one. I forget the name of it, but I know we've talked about it before. So there's some terpenes out there, of course, you're not going to want to work with. But, I think for people coming into this, there's really 5 you should focus on. You got limonene, right, which is coming from our citrus plants. You've got pinene coming from our beautiful garden herbs. We've got caryophyllene, so we find that in our peppercorns, spicy peppers. It's got a lot of anti-inflammatory properties. Then we can look at, we've got linalool, which we very floral. We find in lavender. It's got a very calming effect. I actually had a great, and then we've got myrcene, which we find in mangoes, lemongrass, and it's got those sedative effects. It gives us the munchies, puts us in that couch lock, right? I had a great sort of example said to me one time, and I've always kind of reshared this of, what is the entourage effect and how terpenes play their role in it. Well, just think, you worked a 12-hour day. It's fucking -1 or Fahrenheit outside. It's freezing. You come home after work. The nicest thing you can do is run yourself a bath, right? You're instantly going to relax your body and you're going to start to feel good. Now, that bath is great, but if you lower the lights, you light some candles and you put on Kenny G, all of a sudden that bath just got a little bit better, right? That's the entourage effect, right? We're taking more parts to make this more full spectrum, more complete, right? Like, let's make that bath a little more relaxing. Let's put us in a more chilled mood, right? So, that's how we utilize terpenes is deciding, which flavors we want to accentuate. Another thing as well is, like, I will never start a menu off using myrcene, right? I don't want to get people sedative and tired and couch locked and zoned out, right? I save that until the end, right? I'm going to hit you hard in dessert so that when you leave and you go home an hour later, now all of a sudden you're hitting that, like, hey, let's put on Netflix and just fucking burn one and sit here. So, I like to start the menus, limonene, pinene, get everyone energetic, talkative, focused, high energy, and then let's carry that through,
Are your meals like 3 courses, 4 courses? Like
I typically will do 5 courses. So we do like a little amuse-bouche starter, just a little single one biter. That's where we can really utilize nanotechnology and break down the bioavailability. So nano, if you've had a cannabis beverage where you drink it and within about 10 minutes you start to feel the effects. That's nanotechnology there. So what they've done is they're breaking down the bioavailability of the cannabinoid to microscopic levels, so it actually bypasses your liver, it goes straight into your bloodstream. So with the nanotechnology, right, we can get our guests in the zone from course 1, right? When they sit down, they're starting to feel the effects. Because the entourage effect will only really work is if you're already in that sort of state, right? You're not going to, if you've consumed no cannabis and you sit down that first course and you take your bite and you get the citrus taste, there's cannabis in there, it's going to still be 90 minutes before that THC kind of, hits your CB1 and CB2 receptors, right?
You're not going to feel the buzz. Really, or some of the buzz, like the full buzz, like
Yeah. So if we can get that buzz going from the beginning, then we can, kind of really set the mood with terpenes going forward. So, yeah, we'll Nano's been a big game changer with the dinners. I like to do beverage pairings where we're incorporating the CBD into the beverages, making sure that our guests are getting even amount or a properly balanced dinner in that.
Well, so it's see this, the entourage effect to me, and it's because terpenes. Why terpenes to me always play a huge is like my best example was just like when I was blazing back in the day, and it would taste bad. I feel like I wouldn't get the buzz, but then you would feel the effects every once in a while. You'd be like, oh, okay, it's there, but it's not as heavy. Where if you smoke and it tastes great, it's like for me, it makes all the difference.
That's how I really grade cannabis. When I open that jar that comes in through the dispensary, am I capturing those terpene notes, right? I've seen some cannabis here in Arizona, and I've heard some crazy things about the way people dry cannabis here, where they try and accelerate the process and they destroy all the terpenes. You'll open some of these, like if your cannabis smells like hay, the cultivator fucked it up. They destroyed the terpenes in it. So,
man, that's back when we used to get like brickweed shipped in type of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's brown. Absolutely. It's fine.
I grew up. I'm not sure how much you guys know about British Columbia, but go back 10, 15 years ago, a pound of BC bud was probably the most desired cannabis in the world. We'd hear stories of literally trading 1 pound of BC bud for a pound of cocaine. Like it literally had that much value to it, where they were, they could straight cross it over. So, I grew up around quads all the time, right? Like that's just was typical and normal. So, my wife likes to say I turned her into a weed snob because she was completely fine smoking, whatever cannabis she would get, and now it's we're just we like the finer things, right? I want those. Quads are ultimately what I'm looking for. Unfortunately, we don't see much of that high-powered cannabis in the legal market. But it'll get there.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's funny that you said that because BC bud. I mean, I remember back in the day, they'd be like, "Yeah, this is BC bud." Like, this is BC bud. We're like, what does it mean? Like big buds? Like, what is like? We had no idea. And then British Columbia, and then like we never got BC bud. Like never once. I don't think never once did we get it. Like we're way too far. So it's like I was just more curious. Yeah. So I mean, and definitely, I kept pointing at him when you're saying that because everything you're saying happened to Canada Dave. Like he's a big, finer things, and he's kind of made me one too. Because, call
it can of sewers.
Can of sewers, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's yeah.
Do you have a preferred way? Do you prefer to eat your cannabis? Is that how you prefer to consume, like when you're at home, or do you just love cooking it?
I'm a blunt man.
A blunt man. Wow, what kind of blunt?
Swishers? El Blunto. So this is
what's El Blunto?
El Blunto is the fucking bee's knees, man. It is a cannabis company. They are based out of Los Angeles. They just expanded into Arizona. Make me a happy man. But they, I hate pre-rolls. I think 99% of the pre-rolls out there are fucking garbage. It's the afterthought. It's the profit maker where you don't have to put much into it, but you get a huge profit in return. I used to say I'd never smoked a pre-roll into it. And so I never bought them. But when we moved from Oakland to Arizona, we stopped at this little dispensary in LA, and they had these El Bluntos. Nice thing about El Blunto, it's 1.5 grams in a hemp wrap blunt with a glass tip. And the nice thing is it's not busted up dried flower. They're actually little wholehearted buds that get put in there. So it burns smoothly. It burns nice. There's big terpenes. So yeah, I love the guys over at El Blunto. We've done some events together. I was with them out at Hall of Flowers, serving little canapes and stuff. We've actually even made a Nomad Cook Maple Cream El Blunto that was a limited edition run that we were handing out at events and stuff. So yeah, I'm a blunt man. I'm trying to make the transition to edibles more often. I work with a company in Nevada. They make a Nano infused agave tincture. They do a blue agave, an orange cream, chocolate, and a chocolate espresso. And again, with that Nano, you've got that 5 to 10 minute offset. So If I want to sleep a spoonful of City Trees agave, fucking that'll get me nice and stoned and just put me in that 8-hour don't wake up sleep, where you wake up fresh and ready to go. So, I'm trying to smoke less and ingest more because it's just healthier. I'm getting older in life, and yeah, blunts.
You can't help but love what you love, right?
Yeah.
But I just want to say some. I really liked your website. We put it up below, but I'm gonna pull it up right now so everyone can see it. Cannabis infused dining experiences. I really do enjoy that there.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, man, how this has all kind of come together. As I said, I never once said I wish I was a chef or I want to become a chef. Then when I started down this journey, I was really lost in that first year of who am I as a chef? What am I going to do? I don't want to work in a restaurant. It was funny because at the start of 2018, I said to myself, okay, either the cooking thing fully comes together this year or I'm going to get out and get into the cannabis industry. And all I had to do was put my hands together, marry the two, and, I kind of found what I was meant to do. And cannabis, the last 4 years have been the best years of my life. I met my wife doing a cannabis event in San Francisco. It's brought me happiness. I've got to travel all over the place. Even rolling into MJ BizCon, we drove from Phoenix up to Las Vegas, and there was a point where we come around the bend into Vegas, and I just got fucking goosebumps of like, how am I going to Vegas to cook for 2 different events right now? Like, it still blows my mind that this is what I do, but it has brought me so much happiness in life. I'm extremely fortunate.
Yeah, so you travel all over cooking, huh? Like regularly.
Yeah. I would, 2 weeks out of the month, I'm probably on the road traveling around. And, when I was in Canada, we've got 8 major cities, right? So the travel circuit is somewhat limited. And, you could just sit on the West Coast in the U.S. and probably serve thousands of different people. The state of California has more people than the entire country of Canada. So, it's cool being down here. There's a ton of places to go still, and it's very encouraging to see more and more states move into legalization. America's like Canada. Yeah, we federally legalized, but we overregulated heavily. We're
seeing some of the states do the same. Like, that's why we're seeing California kind of circle back on itself from the overregulation, that people are going back to the black market. Gray market.
Well, I mean,
unregulated.
If you look at Canada's black market has quadrupled in size, and we don't like to call it the black market. We call it the gray market. That's what I said,
unregulated.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So,
corrected myself because it's like instinct. I'll be like black market. Yeah. It's like when I'm still saying wax, where they're supposed to say concentrates. I've had like people that make concentrates come to me like, please say concentrates.
The thing is, like, I am a gray market company because culinary cannabis isn't legal yet. You can't do this,
right.
And every single cannabis company will work with me. So obviously, I always kind of roll my eyes. This past summer in Canada, there was a story in the news about there was a family get together in Victoria, all these different families, and there was 5 kids under the age of 8 that found a 500 milligram Stoner Patch Kids packet, black market, looking like Sour Patch Kids, and all the kids ate them. They got super fucking sick, right? Not funny. No one wants to see that. And then all of a sudden on LinkedIn, I'm seeing some people from the legal space starting to bash, the gray market's ruining this and blah, blah. And, just to that story, it's not the fact that there's cannabis and packaging with some cartoons and that. How about the shitty parents that don't put their cannabis out of reach of the kids? Like, if you have a gun in your house, do you not lock it up and put it away? Like, that same responsibility has to come with cannabis, right? So when I see the legal space bash the gray space and the black space, I sometimes go to them and say, hey, you work with me, right? And I'm helping move this transition this from the underground to the mainstream. So, I understand it's frustrating that these gray market brands don't have to play by the same rules, but
right. It's funny because you bring this up because we're dealing with shit here in Michigan with the MCMA and their lobby group kind of going against the unregulated market, saying things similar to what they were saying, to you that, it's this, but they're also fighting caregiver rights. So it's really not a right thing. And they're both always going to exist, right? Like once it's legal, there's always going to be the legal market. There's always going to be trying to make money off it. It's just, you can't take the minority and say that's the majority just because you believe it. It's because that sounds then you're pushing this negative propaganda of cannabis and it's so overregulated, and then it's just
here's the thing to remember. It's like, who are the people that purchase in the gray and black space, right? Do I? Yeah, I do. I've been using cannabis for 25 years, right? If I want some quad A cannabis, I'm not going to the dispensary to get it. I'm picking up the phone and I'm calling Matt from 2B down the hallway, right? Who I know has got it. So what we're going to see, though, is this industry evolve and transition over the next 10 to 20 years as new people come into it. The 50-year-old grandma who's using CBD oil and getting into this, she's not going to be using the black market, right? So it's going to be a transition. That space is always going to be there. Hey, listen, I'm promoting the legal space. I think everyone should go through the legal chain. One thing as a chef, if I call Matt from 2B down the hallway to grab an ounce of cannabis and I go down and get it, did he make the name up for his strain? Can he tell me the THC percentage on it? Can he tell me the cultivation of how that was grown? No. But if I go into the dispensary and I get an El Blunto, right, I know all the information about that strain of cannabis because it's on the label, right? And so that's right there a win for legalization, because now we're being given all the information about what we're smoking or what we're eating or what we're using.
Right, more information is power. It's power to the consumer.
Not enough in
what
the
you're putting in your
cannabis
body.
industry.
Yep, absolutely.
Got any other questions for Travis?
Oh, I'm trying to think. You broke how you use terpenes and distillates, and let me ask you one thing. I've always been curious. So, when I get an edible that says it's from a distillate, does it make me feel different than just like a carb?
Well, yeah, because it's a distillate of just straight THC, right? So again, you'll hear someone be like, "Oh, I once ate one candy. It's supposed to be 10 milligrams, and it fucked me up," right? And that's because it was just THC. Again, if you're new to this or you have a low tolerance, you need this CBD. You need the other cannabinoids. You don't just want pure THC, because chances are you're going to green out.
I see. So when you're getting the from flower, you're getting that entourage effect, more of that full spectrum. Which I understood that, but when you get distillate, you lose all those other cannabinoids. I didn't realize
because a distillate is made from isolated THC, right? It's pure THC. They're 98% pure. There's no other cannabinoids in there, right? So it's not even so much the terpenes, but it's the CBD. Now, if you've got a 1-to-1 distillate, that's a better way to go, right? But I would even say for people who are new, I'm giving someone 15 milligrams of CBD to 5 milligrams of THC. Right? I want to hit them 3-to-1 to CBD because I want to hit that middle note, right? I get them up with the THC and then carry it across and plateau it, not just punch them in the face with THC and let them sit there with it.
I love it. You got each step planned along the whole way.
Well, that's actually really sweet, especially when you're doing a 5-course meal, because if you just think about it, Dave, we were thinking sometimes we think, 5-10 milligrams, that's not enough for something, on our calorie, but if I'm at 50 to 100, I'm going to be too messed up. So I kind of like that you're adding small doses of THC and terpenes and everything, building them up. So by the time they're done, they're not just, they're not going to be able to snap sand.
It's spacing it out. It's realizing where are you putting it. Not every course of my menu has an even amount of THC in it, right? If you're 5 milligrams of THC, you're going to get that in your first course, and then you're not going to get it anymore. I'm not going to do 1 milligram, right? I'm going to have that fight. But then I'm going to hit you with CBD in the next couple courses so that you get that lift. Okay, I'm feeling the THC, and then that CBD kind of plateaus and calms it out. If you have a higher tolerance, then I'm going to hit you really heavy on the first course and really heavy on the last course, right? Because I want you feeling it at dinner, and I want you to leave and still be in that zone. Because, again, I know what it's like to have a high tolerance. I know how quickly things can go and, how your body will react to it. So.
Oh, and I missed this. We had a question a little bit ago, and I missed this one. Do you have a recipe book, or can you recommend one? Cooking with cannabis.
Yeah, I've got a cookbook coming out this summer, so it'll be coming out into July. I'm actually just finished it. We're doing photos and everything next week. I've got a national tour planned in Canada. We're doing 10 cities, 100 people at each city, and that's for the release of the cookbook. So come this summer, it'll be out. In my opinion, Bong Appetit is the best culinary cannabis cookbook out there. Again, because it's kind of showing you a wide range of recipes you could incorporate too, and it gives a lot of sort of educational lecture pieces in there. But yeah, Bong Appetit for books that are out there. Otherwise, Introduction to Culinary Cannabis by the Nomad Cook come this summer. So.
Oh, excited. Yeah, no, we'll definitely excited. We'll share that.
We'll
share whatever we got to do. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, yeah, because I think that's a really good, fair question because when all these shows came out, Bong Appetit and Cooking with Cannabis and all these, it was like a new thing. It was like a way to, and I always say to Dave, eating cannabis is the way to bring a lot of people in and drinking it. So just consuming in general is a lot about people that aren't comfortable with smoking and dabbing because they're not used to it, but they eat food and they drink drinks, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a way to bring people that aren't comfortable
with cannabis beverage market. I think the cannabis beverage market will be the biggest sector next to dried flower.
That's what you were saying.
I already see it because I don't drink much anymore. There's a company in California called Purijuana. They make a nano powder, and they come out to some of my events, and they'll do like a purple punch mojito, right? So there's no alcohol, but there's 10 milligrams of nano powder that have been put into this drink so that you're sipping on it and you feel it right away, right? So I can't wait for the day that I can go to a bar with some friends and just order my cannabis beverages and, be stoned and not drunk.
We had decarb. We had de-alkalized beer, but it was infused with THC. It was like 6 milligrams of. It was my first beer in Vegas was THC. It wasn't actually beer.
I'm going to show you guys something quickly here. Go 1 second.
Cool.
There we go.
Appreciate everyone.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Tuned into our live session today with Travis. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Thank you for asking your questions. You got any more questions? It sounds like he's gonna be getting on here soon. So ask him if you got.
So we're talking about black market, gray market products. This is Cron Perignon.
Perignon.
Cron Perignon. It is a cannabis infused champagne. There's 150 milligrams of nano, 7% alcohol. So it's a big no-no because we've mixed cannabis and alcohol together. They no longer make these. There's only about 35 cases left out there because Dom Perignon threatened to sue the guys that made this.
Well, I mean, you can imagine. I mean, it's really close to it. I mean, it's the same product, essentially.
It's their logo. So
legit their logo,
yeah. This is the thing is this is very powerful. This box I won't be opening. I don't know if you can see. That's number 420. So the last 1,000 bottles that got made, they hologram stamped as collector items. So every now and then I want to open it, but I'm like, no, it's a collectible. Don't
do it. That's still interesting because that's. I mean, if cannabis gets fully legal and we finally get past decriminalization and past safe banking and then full legalization. That would be the next step is combining the two. But I don't know if people are ready for that.
It's going to happen. It's already happening. I've seen cannabis wines out there. They don't taste very good, but it's happening. The thing with Cron Perignon is it tastes delicious, which is also a problem because I've seen at least a dozen people green out drinking it because it tastes so fucking good that you have that glass and you're like, oh, I'm going to have another one. And, you know, we were serving it last summer on tour and we had to stop just because for people with low tolerances, it's too much, right? So,
yeah, I couldn't imagine, especially, I mean, I'm not a big drinker anymore either. So, you know, I don't drink too much. And then I'm also, you know, 100 milligrams.
But that's why I love it, because I don't drink very much anymore. I get a little bit of buzz off the alcohol. I get stoned off the cannabis. To me, it's beautiful. Like I love Grand Perignon, but yeah. So that's where this is all going.
I never even seen a product that actually had alcohol and cannabis mixed, so that was the first time I've ever seen it. You hear through the grapevine, but I've never even heard of these cannabis wines either. I'm surprised your dad hasn't been about that, but yeah, you know. No, man, that's awesome. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we usually wrap around this time, so this is actually where we would close up. But so, do you have anybody you want to shout out or say thank you to, or you want to drop your, you know, I put your IG in the lower.
I want to thank you guys for having me on, and hey, you guys want to put together your cannabis dinner? I'll come out there, right? So you guys can just hit me up, and you know, all we gotta do is rent an Airbnb and find people who want to buy some tickets, and you know, bring me out to Michigan.
Just a little private event, yeah, it'd be fun. Just cook it up.
Maybe we'll do spring, summer before you go to Canada for your book tour.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. So if you're out in Michigan around these guys, you need to start bugging Canada Dave here to put together this Nomad Cook dinner. So.
Hell yeah, man! That'd be fun, man. We were just actually talking about that before. He's like, man, we got to ask him. I was like,
especially as we're trying to build things down the road and finally get events in there and do social events, and that would be
that'd be fun.
Goal.
That's something I've always wanted to experience myself. Full meal cooked infused with cannabis. I've watched all the shows, so I just want to say thank you, Travis, for coming on.
Please check him out.
Taking your time out of the day with us. You joined us for the whole hour today, so thank you. Appreciate all the listeners tuning in. If you missed anything, this is on YouTube, so you can check it there. It's also on LinkedIn and our website as well too. So we go live this Saturday. Catch us at 4:20 at 7, 9, 10. Wow, I am butchering
7, 10 right now Tuesdays, 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 4:20 on Wednesdays for the episode. Jeez, Canada.
Yeah, I was just messing them all up. All right.
Yeah, but thank you, Travis. We really appreciate you tuning in today. It's been awesome learning, and honestly, I feel like I learned way more than I expected. Yes, in 1 hour, so I feel like I was just listening to you this whole time. So thank you. And,
appreciate it.
Looking forward to that book. Thank you for answering the questions for our listeners. That's all I got, Canada Dave. Anything else you want to say?
No, other than that, as always, we're here to advocate,
educate,
and inspire. Till next time, guys.
Peace. Later.
Peace. Awesome. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Later.
Thanks, Travis.
Ciao.
be easy. Then we can have a party.